Hello, moviegoers, and welcome to another edition of Have You Seen It? I am your host, Denise, and this week, the movie that I'm going to review comes from Netflix, and I'm going to get into that right after I get into my new segment, My Favorite Actor. And if you watched last week, you'll remember that I included a new segment in the Have You Seen It world. And my favorite actor is simply just an actor whose work I admire and love and has the versatility and the range that is just incredible in practically every movie that they are in. So this week, my favorite actor is Meryl Streep. I love Meryl Streep. And the two movies that I'm going to choose for why I like Meryl Streep so much are Iron Lady. You gotta catch that. That was fantastic. And August, Osage County. You might want to check that one out as well. So that is my favorite actor for this week, Meryl Streep. And those are the two movies that she's really, really great in. All right. So now, folks, I'm going to jump into my review. The name of this movie is called Woman of the Hour. It is right in my sweet spot. Folks, I'm telling you, I've been very lucky in finding these 90-minute-ish movies that I found streaming and in the theater, and I'm just loving it. So I'm going to continue to ride that wave. So this movie stars Anna Kendrick and David Zovato. And it is based on a true story. It's the true story of Cheryl Bradshaw and Rodney Alcala. Now, Bradshaw was an aspiring actress who appeared on the 1970s game show, The Dating Game. I'm aging myself because I used to watch that show, and so I was familiar with it. The character played by David Zovato is a serial killer, and she has no idea about this at all. She's just trying to kind of get her feet in the door to get some acting gigs. So she's on the dating game, and this gentleman is one of the three suitors that are vying for her attention. And so once the game show wraps up, she ends up choosing him, okay? He is slicker than slick because he's a psychopath. So he knows exactly how to respond to the questions being asked in a way that makes her hone in on him as opposed to the other gentleman. Now, what I did not realize with this particular game show was how sexist it was, how scripted it was, and how the female contestants were expected to behave and how they were prepped prior to going on camera, and the questions that were scripted for them. So these questions that were scripted for this young woman were quite they were really snowball questions. You know, anybody could answer these questions. But during a break, she does something very clever, just based on the makeup artist and hairstylist who were kind of prepping her, you know, in between takes. She did something very clever, and she turned the tables around And instead of going by the scripted questions that she was given, she turned those questions around, which gave this gentleman an opportunity to focus in and give the right response. So fast forward, she chooses him. And at the end of the game, of course, you're going on a trip to blah, blah, blah. Well, that evening, in a way to kind of get to know each other a little better, they go and have, casual drinks. But during their conversation and dialogue in that bar, you can see that she's getting some uncomfortable feelings about this gentleman, and, figures out a way to kind of end this part of our first date and make my way back home, to my car and so forth. So that whole scene scared me because Anna Kendrick was so good in how she portrayed a woman whose spidey senses told her intuition kicked in and said, something's not right here. You need to get out of this situation. So I could see it in her face, her body language. And I feared for her because I really didn't know what was going to happen. So I'm going to leave that part there. So you're just going to have to watch it to see how she dealt with that situation. Well, in this movie, you have flashbacks and timelines. This all happened in the 70s. So you have different timelines of this gentleman and his violent behavior and how he lured his victims. And the way that he did it was he was posing as a photographer. Okay. And again, this is in the 70s. So, you talk about gullible. This guy is just randomly taking pictures of things and people. And once he sees a situation that he can impose on, he jumps in and tells a woman everything she wants to hear about how beautiful she is and you would make a good model and so forth and so on. And so that was his MO. I'm just a photographer. I find a victim, make them comfortable, make them feel good about themselves, and then I take them in my car, drive them to who knows where, and then I dispose of them. Now, what this movie did not show was it kind of showed that in terms of his interaction with his victim, something is about to happen. This person knows it and is fearful. Then you don't see the actual attack or abuse happening. Then what you see next is the aftermath. So I'm telling you, this movie held my attention. It was kind of slow in the beginning, but once you realized, what type of character we're dealing with, you're there and you feel for each victim. And I couldn't help but think, how this is how this stuff happens. This is how people are kidnapped and taken advantage of and so forth, because they have been targeted, they're vulnerable, and a lot of times they have their own baggage, with self-image and self-esteem and things like that, that make them an easier target and easy and gullible to persuade. So that is my review, Woman of the Hour, starring Anna Kendrick and David Zovato. All right, folks, I'm going to jump right into my Nailed It. And my Nailed It this week comes from the movie Jagged Edge. You talking about a great courtroom thriller starring Glenn Close and Jeff Bridges. And Jeff Bridges is accused of killing his wife. Glenn Close is the lawyer who's got to get him off. But another slick one. He was so slick that she believed his innocence and they started to have a romance. But once she figured out that, wait a minute, things aren't as they seem, then all hell broke loose. I was scared for that woman in that movie when she figured out, oh shit, he could be guilty, and he realizes that, oh shit, she realizes that I could be guilty. Jagged Edge. That is my nailed it. All right, folks, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you hit that like button. And remember, we are available on every podcast platform in the universe. Just type in, Have You Seen It with Denise, and there I will be. All right, moviegoers, you know what to do. I need you to see a movie because I'm going to see a movie. Until next week, remember to vote. And I'm going to see a movie, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.